through sixth graders. So what is it that we do? So we are an in-school multi-year program that is offered at no charge to students or their families. We have numerous units of education covering really the spectrum of sustainability topics, from ecosystems and pollinators all the way into global food systems and renewable energy, for example. And we work hard to fit right into the classroom. We actually go right into the classroom with the kids. Well, this year we're virtual, but typically we are hands-on with the students. And our biggest partners really are the classroom teachers that welcome us into their schools and classes. And we work hard to make sure that the programming that we provide is customized to what they need and what their goals are and where their students are in their learning process. We also provide professional development for teachers so that they can implement some of this type of curriculum while we're not there and in between our visits. Essentially, we teach lots of different subjects: science, engineering, excuse me, math, English language arts, social studies, health, pardon me, all through the lens of sustainability. And we help with problem-solving skills, social emotional learning, etc. It's a really fun program, unique program. Yeah. And it's really designed for schools, like I had said, because we integrate all sorts of curricula for our students. We actually have a study going on that it does prove to be helpful in increasing academic achievement and engagement.
So one of the focuses that we've had since the very beginning founding this was that climate change unites each one of us globally. It's the one topic that we felt we really could all connect as human beings about. And we just didn't quite see the connection that other people were making, that environmental health equals human health. And that is such a critical link that we need to have. And we need to understand that if the environment is failing, inevitably we are going to follow suit. So this is not a message that we convey to our students at all. We convey messages of hope and resilience and innovation, and the thought that, and the idea that they are tomorrow's innovators, they are tomorrow's leaders. And if they know about these topics now, they can begin with small changes and shifts within their family unit, within their small school community, to really start to develop tools and tactics that will allow them to achieve academic and career success. So how do we do this? Well, we've designed our program to shift the paradigm of environmental education. Most environmental education has always really been focused on the environment. And it is that all those forms of environmental education are incredibly wonderful and awesome, but they exist. We are focused on the learner. So our program is focused on the products that the kids are using, where they're getting their food, how they're getting to school, the energy that they're using, how they're heating their homes. So it's really focused on the kids' lives. And that's really where we make our connection with the students. It is solely about where those kids intersect with their environment and how that intersection of environment and health can impact them and their communities and help their families. In many cases, we're showing them ways of saving money and using money for healthier foods, for example. So our program is really designed around the learner itself and not necessarily around an environmental or sustainability topic. We tie that in and we have kids thinking about really critical, deep issues like product life cycle or their carbon footprint. But we're doing so in a way that is fulfilling the school's goals around math and literacy and helping kids achieve success, but we're doing it in a fun and hands-on way that the students really can understand at its core. And from there, they can start to build their skills. Another reason that we wanted to do this is Lauren is an environmental scientist and was working in the field when we founded Change is Simple. And quite frankly, she wanted to inspire more kids to go into the science field. And I was someone who went into the science field, but through my education, just didn't find myself as engaged in the topic and really kind of wanted those hands-on experiences that were lacking for me. So we had kind of a contrast in our experience, and we thought, well, between the two of us, we can put our heads together and come up with a way to really engage kids. And we've done so. So now our program is in school, as Lauren mentioned, and we have a team of educators and a group of college trainees or college students that we train to execute the program in the classroom and make it really hands-on. You know, when Carol asked us to speak, it was really kind of focused on how, you know, how has COVID shifted things for us? And what are some of the issues that we're seeing? Well, 10 years ago when we started Change is Simple, one of the reasons that we started it was that there was a lack of sustainability in climate education in our schools. And we thought, well, we can do this on the side of our full-time jobs for a while and see if we can boost that. And we imagined that it would eventually catch up and schools would start to do this. And it hasn't yet. And we feel as though COVID has actually pushed that back, where teachers are really striving to just get the kids the basic skills that they're needing in math and reading and literacy. And then access to technology as well has created less hands-on opportunities for students. We are working virtually and designing programs virtually this year. We're about to go back into schools as well, but it really came down to giving kids these experiences. And prior to COVID, there was a number of studies. One of the most interesting is an article that anyone can look up in the New York Times, and I'd be happy to share the link with you, but it's called The Lost Einsteins. And it really sends a powerful message about youth in our communities that are from underserved districts or underserved communities who lack the mentors to actually visibly and have a mentor, have someone in their lives that can showcase the opportunities that they might have. And that what this study found was that even the brightest students, the most highly achieving science and math students, if they didn't have a mentor, if they were from an underserved community, the chances of them becoming an innovator or a person that's working in the STEM field to innovate for our future, they were falling behind, or they were not pursuing a career in that field at all. So that was pretty eye-opening for us to see that prior to COVID. And I think in the past couple of years, we have seen a little bit more attention on that, but COVID has definitely shaken that back a little bit. And that's really kind of one of the core issues. Readiness or what they can just do with their academics now. So we're working communities to try and expand these offerings for students. And as Lauren mentioned, we worked with about 9,000 students a year. And each one of those students, not only do they get to experience our team several times throughout the year, right in their classrooms during the school day, but they also get a mentor from Northeastern University that works on our team and then helps guide them. And those mentors are really incredibly powerful people in the lives of these students that we're working with. And just to close, I think our whole goal all along was to inspire students to become big picture thinkers. To our students, this is a simple way of saying it. This apple in the top corner is not just an apple. They're able to really see the big picture. They see the farm in Argentina. They see the resources and water and pesticides that went into it. They care about the conditions that the farmer had to work within and understand the carbon that's going into transporting it. And they can see other options and understand why to shop local and why to be active in this system and how they can make change. And we feel as though it's an empowering program, and we're thrilled about moving forward after COVID with more direct hands-on learning for kids.
Yeah, and we hope that the challenge of schools not prioritizing this type of education hopefully swings back in the direction that it looked like it was swinging in, and hopefully the schools can get back on track. And we can help, hopefully, the teachers build capacity in order to integrate sustainability into their classrooms.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're going to move right into, we'll save the Q&A here till the end so we can kind of have a group discussion. So I'm going to turn things right over to Gabe at All In Energy. And just a quick note, I got to know Gabe in the wake of the Columbia gas crisis. All In Energy is partnering with a number of orgs in Essex County around energy efficiency and empowering access to more diverse populations, and also creating workforce empowerment opportunities around energy efficiency, but all under the umbrella of moving toward more sustainable energy solutions. So Gabe, I'll turn things over to you.
All right, is my screen being shared properly?
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you all for inviting us to participate in this conversation. I'd love to tell you a little bit about the issues that All In Energy is working on and our approach to kind of addressing those issues that we've identified. So just who is All In Energy? What our mission is really to accelerate an inclusive clean energy economy and work to diversify the clean energy workforce. We really see ourselves as working at the nexus of two interrelated problems. On the one hand, we're lucky in Massachusetts to really have nation-leading energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. These are programs that are, enacted by the state and are paid for by us, the ratepayers, every month on our bills. But when you look at who's benefiting from those programs, it's disproportionately whiter, wealthier communities where homes are larger and incomes are larger. And there are a variety of reasons for that. But people who live at our city centers and are more likely to rent their units, speak languages other than English, live in multi-unit buildings, and have lower incomes on average are not participating of no fault of their own in these programs at the rates that they should, as represented their percentage of representation in the population. So that's one issue that's just not fair, and also is like creating we believe that we're going to bring everybody with us to make this big transition to a clean energy economy, and we don't want to leave all these folks behind. And on the other end of the other issue that we're trying to address is that we are lucky also to have a really thriving clean energy economy in Massachusetts with lots of great growing companies. But when you walk into the headquarters of most of these companies, it's still an overwhelmingly white male workforce, especially at the leadership levels. And the reason that we think that these problems are interrelated is not having representation from these communities, both with the sort of cultural capabilities of being able to communicate and market to those communities, but also just lacking the just general language skills to do effective marketing campaigns is one of the reasons that those groups remain underserved. So what we're doing is collaborating with cities and towns, partnering with local organizations in those towns to do co-branded campaigns that meet people where they are and really recruit them to participate in these programs. And not only that, we're working with the sort of ecosystem of those programs to make sure that people can not only learn about the programs in their preferred language, but also be served in that language as well, and have follow-up support from our staff all throughout the process to make sure that they get all the benefits that they're eligible for. And I do want to note, especially as for the topic of this conversation, not only are these communities sort of being left out of the programs, but they're actually the most vulnerable to climate change. So they're the most impacted. Groundwork Lawrence is doing this amazing study that borrowed this image from them about the intersection of climate change and race. And they've been overlaying these redlining maps over sort of vulnerability to extreme heat and flooding vulnerability. And you can, like, as they've sort of found through their study, I totally recommend that you check it out, the work that they've done on this. There's a pretty tight correlation with these communities of color that were impacted by redlining, now that lack tree coverage that increases their vulnerability to extreme heat and flooding. So they've done some great work on this. They're our core primary partner in Lawrence, and we're collaborating with them in Haverhill as well. But this is just another reason why it's just unfair that we're leaving people out of these programs, but also they're disproportionately impacted. So it's like another way that like climate justice and race should be front and center as we think about how we're deploying our public dollars and programs. And I was also note that COVID has also exacerbated a lot of the issues that we see. I'm meeting more and more people who, for the first time are eligible for income eligible programs because they've had their employment impacted by COVID. I meet many, many people who are behind on their electric bills, We've had a moratorium on electric shutoffs, so people are, prioritizing their whatever funds they have to pay for food and medicine in this time, and are not paying their electric bills. So we're starting to see, people who are months and months behind. This is actually a pretty conservative bill screenshot that I put up here. I've seen upwards of over $10,000 people are owing from their electric bills. And then the program has evolved to be able to provide virtual services. And I just took a screenshot from like the promotion of the virtual audit. This is a customer taking video, like pictures of their house to get like service through the program. And that's just been difficult for seniors and non-English speakers, like additional barriers for them to access these programs. And it's been great that we have been able to help so many people virtually during the time of COVID. But again, it's like making it difficult for the people on the margins to participate. So just a little bit about more what we're doing. We have this program that I sort of described. We're partnering with cities and building a coalition of local partners to help get the word out and recruit participation into energy efficiency programs and renewable energy programs. We started out in 2018 in Dorchester and expanded to Cambridge the next year. We've really leaned in and launched our bilingual Spanish programming in 2020. So this is our second year working in Lawrence and Methuen, and we're continuing to build out that capability in the Merrimack Valley, but also in some other cities that have a high preponderance of non-English speakers. We are building up our Portuguese pathway in Framingham this year, and are really excited to continue both adding additional services in different languages and also additional programs and products that we can offer to folks that help them save energy and money at home. These are just some of the barriers we're trying to address with those folks quickly. Like as I mentioned, there's logical reasons why these groups remain underserved of no fault of their own. And they're just like, here are four of them. Just, the awareness, there's a lot of mass marketing and targeting marketing that are targeting outside of these communities. And the mass marketing is often doesn't resonate with renters and is not typically done in languages other than in English. There's a lot of well-earned trust barriers in this space. There's lots of unscrupulous energy supply companies that have targeted these communities with kind of bait and switch greenwashed offers that have really harmed a lot of families. So people have their guard up when they hear messaging about energy. And there are other barriers to overcome. In communities like Lawrence, where there are a lot of immigrants, people are just nervous about providing information about the people that live in their home. They're worried that information is going to make its way to ICE. Again, well-earned mistrust of the system. But so we have to like work through that so that we can get these tenants and building owners the services that they need. We do have building owners who don't want to invite anyone into their home, especially when we're co-branding with cities. They think like something's going to get in the hands of inspectional services, or they'll see that there are too many people living in those units. And again, these are unrelated to the issue that we're trying to focus on, but there are barriers that we need to overcome. People are just very busy, just generally, to take advantages, to make time, not only to receive the services, but really to overcome the first two barriers of like listening and participating and reaching out, but more importantly, just to do whatever they need to do to lower their trust barrier, to trust the program. So people are it's easier just to say no to everything than to do the research to cut through the noise to figure out which programs are actually good for them. So we work through that by approaching them in a way that is in a place of trust with a organization they already know and trust, and with an immediate pathway to action. So once we talk to them and they get excited about it, we're going to set up their appointment right then and then when we're talking to them, rather than give them homework. And then it's really on us to make sure that the programs are accessible. So we're providing the non-English language support. We are working to help them access the funding that removes barriers that are unrelated to energy in their home that might exist before they can take advantage of insulation and air sealing. We're coordinating, doing all the coordination between mixed income tenants and working with landlords and tenants to make sure that can all happen, and just sort of trying to wipe away some of the complexity that the program has for these mixed income buildings. The program is really, designed for the middle, works really well for single family homeowners. But these complicated buildings, which exist, are the majority buildings in places of Lawrence, really need support to make it to the end of the program. So what we'd like, just as an example, I threw out of what we're doing in Lawrence, like we're working with the city there, that we have a contractual relationship with the city. But we're also looking for local organizations. So we've really, partnered pretty closely with Groundwork Lawrence as our anchor partner. And this allows us not only to by building their trust, to allow us to build trust with the community, but because we're deploying resources in the community, we can also cross promote what they're doing. So we've done a lot of work promoting their Green Streets tree planting program, which has been great. We're out in the community. We have canvassers who are talking about energy assessments, but at the same time, we're providing information about the tree planting program. And even during this COVID time, when we did like contactless canvassing, really just dropping door hangers and pamphlets, we saw a big uptick in the participation in the tree planting program. And in addition to the results around getting more people connected to home energy assessments and insulation contracts, all the while also referring a lot of folks to GLCAC, to their low-income program and the multifamily program as well. So that's the model. We're really trying to recognize that when we come into a community, we don't have these deep, longstanding connections. We're trying to find organizations to lift up with our work, like Groundwork, so we can, they would love to be like providing, connecting more people to these energy services, but they don't have the capacity. So we're working with them not only to build capacity to effectively connect their constituents with these programs, but also help them boost their impact around some of their other programs as well. And then just on the clean energy careers side, we've been doing some great, we've been really, really successful in recruiting multilingual, diverse talent to our team. And not only, having them provide excellent service to the families and the communities we're serving, but also helping them find their next step in the clean energy space. So a lot of the folks have come through our college age interns who have been with us for a semester. Our full-time team is populated with a lot of those folks who we've hired full-time when they've graduated, but we've also helped a lot of them find their next careers in the clean energy industry, either as their next internship or in many cases, like after they've graduated their full-time job. So we're really proud of that as well. That's a part of our operation we'd like to create a little bit more structure and formalization around, but just through sort of the ad hoc nature of the skills that we're providing to them and the connection to our network, we've been really successful in placing a lot of folks. So that is the brief overview of All in Energy. Happy to answer more questions about what we do and how we do it, the types of programs we're connecting to folks and the populations that we're targeting. But I will turn it back to Carol for the next part of the program.
That's great, Gabe. Yeah, and during the Q&A, maybe we could talk a little bit about what you see on the horizon in terms of opportunities, big opportunities kind of collectively. But
Great.
We'll move things. I know Erina has to hop off right at 1, so we'll jump right into Erina. I'm going to go ahead and turn things right over to you. And Erina is the Sustainability Director with the City of Beverly, who's doing some very exciting work.
Thank you, Carol. And I'm just waiting to see if I can share my screen. I see that one participant can share at a time, so we'll give this a shot. And let me know if that's working out for you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Carol said, my name is Erina Keefe. I'm the Sustainability Director with the City of Beverly. I gotta say, I'm really honored to be on this lineup with 2 wonderful organizations that I'm a big fan of. And I'm really glad that these groups and so many others are kind of joining forces to address climate change from different lenses. So thanks. And as Carol also mentioned, I'm fairly new. I joined the city in October of 2020, and my position is located in the mayor's office. It was made possible by an anonymous donation, so thank you to that person. And it was really created because Mayor Cahill's administration is really committed to making sure that Beverly does our part to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and stay below our global limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius. So at a high level, my charge is really to design and implement policies, programs, and projects that will advance our goals of reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. And sustainability, as you can see on the slide, is really an all-encompassing topic. If it's done right, it should kind of hit every segment of city operations. And in reality, this involves kind of being a cheerleader for the fantastic work that our Department of Public Services does on the ground and continues to do, especially in improving heating and cooling systems of our municipal buildings, installing new controls, et cetera. I also serve as the project manager for a handful of projects around the city. There under the energy section of the slide, you can see that we have installed about 9 megawatts of solar around town, and we have 4.5 megawatts coming online in the next year or two. We also have several electric vehicle charging stations that are going in at municipal parking lots as well as at our schools. And a kind of final component of my job is really in building strategic partnerships with our utility, with National Grid, and our community partners. So that 2050 goal that I mentioned seems really far away. So we really need to be understanding what we can do today and every step of the way to make sure that we're going to reach that goal and we're on track. And really doing this through Resilient Together. And we're nearing the finish line of our climate action plan. And I'm hoping that any Beverly residents that are in the audience today have heard of this plan. I did see Esmeralda Bisono in the audience, and we are partnering with the City of Salem in this plan, which is really intended to address carbon mitigation as well as community resilience to the impacts of climate change, which are shown here on the slide. We're slated to experience in the future more, and we already have started to experience these more frequent and intense storms. We're expecting sea level rise of about 1.5 feet, depending on the risk projection that you choose. We're seeing more periods of drought and flooding, both from stormwater runoff and from possibly from sea level encroaching in. So heat waves were mentioned earlier. We're expecting kind of more extreme temperatures in the summertime as well. And this is just kind of showing you some of the takeaways that we've learned from our greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Really, it's the plan, kind of one of the big takeaways for us is that 90%, 98% of our city's emissions have come from just 2 sources alone. One is in buildings, it's about 50% in Beverly, 55% in Salem, and transportation, which accounts for about 48% of our emissions. So these 2 sectors are going to be kind of the focus of our climate work, though we're working on plenty else at the same time. So this is just a quick overview of the planning process. We're in April right now, so we're just kind of getting going on the final development of our plan after several kind of phases and periods of community outreach, including with our Climate Action Advisory Committee. And we had a few meetings here, which is a group of about 40 community stakeholders that are contributing to the plan's development. And I bring this up only because Patrick, who you heard from earlier, has been a really valuable contributor to this group. So we were tasked for this presentation to think a little bit more about the kind of impacts that we've seen on climate in the face of COVID-19. And in short, yes, the pandemic, excuse me, has slowed us down from being able to reach our climate goals. And I will make note of a few practices, but kind of from a high level, as Gabe explained really nicely, communities of color and service workers are really being impacted most by this pandemic. So one thing that we're seeing is really an overwhelming need to focus on meeting the urgent, important needs of people, keeping them housed, making sure everyone has food, providing support in the event of job lost. So while the landscape has changed a little bit and is starting to improve, Esmeralda and I had recently spoken to several neighborhood and faith-based leaders as part of a focus group and learned that climate issues still feel really far away, and they don't feel like they're, they feel far removed from what the service providers are hearing on the ground. So while people might not be having conversations explicitly about increased heat or the urban heat island effect, when there are so many more pressing and immediate matters to the community, we know that this action every day is still really important. One kind of benefit of that is that we have seen this kind of galvanized coalition, if you will, of emergency response and social service response. So the city, for example, had rolled out a system for emergency calls that could also be used in response to communications for climate-induced storms. that we know, as I mentioned, will increase in intensity. Some other impacts, while communication may have gone up from an engagement standpoint, this has not been a normal year, and this Resilient Together Climate Action Plan couldn't have been a normal planning process where we would be able to meet people where they are at concerts or festivals, farmers markets, et cetera. So I think we haven't had as broad of a reach as we would have liked on that front. I also have a couple of literal interpretations of this prompt looking to waste. We have seen an increase in takeout containers, many of which cannot be recycled. This might be news to some of you. I know I learned it this year, but you really can't recycle those black plastic takeout containers. The city did have a ban on plastic bags, which was lifted and paused throughout pandemic for public safety's sake. We have had a polystyrene ban drafted, but I think this would have hit restaurants too hard when the pandemic hit. So it's kind of been shelved for now, and we're hoping to roll that out when it seems like an appropriate time to do so. And then Gabe, I believe, also hit on some of the kind of energy losses. So and this is all, those little arrows are kind of impacts, right? So we're consuming more energy throughout the pandemic because as we have a need for greater air circulation, it means that we might be running a heating system while we have the windows open. That happens all the time at City Hall. And if the bottom photo in the energy section looks familiar, it's because, yeah, we're also running propane tanks in the middle of January in order to keep these businesses alive. So that last category for transportation, I think we had seen a kind of dip in vehicle miles traveled in the region, though we are starting to see people returning to work. So thinking about, some opportunities that we have, I'm really energized by the increased coordination and communications of different groups. I hope that there is that kind of increased sense of solidarity in the community and with partners. I know that the City of Beverly can't resolve these climate threats on our own, so we're really grateful to be part of the landscape with all these other organizations and other leaders in the climate space to reach the kind of overarching goals. And generally, I'm really glad to have had this opportunity. I know personally, just speaking for my own work, it's sometimes easy to get stuck in the weeds. So this was a really good excuse to kind of take a step back and reflect on the context of our work in this strange year. So yeah. I will wrap up there.
That's great. Thank you so much, Erina. And so much of this is certainly reflected in all the other work that so many of our amazing community partners and ECCF has been doing throughout COVID, where we see the impacts, the greatest on populations of color. So it's certainly something that resonates with us in all of your work. But collectively, if there's an opportunity, we can work together. And like I said, we've been exploring lots of different channels of this work. Some of that began throughout the Columbia gas crisis and that nexus of some of Gabe's work and just the natural and non-natural disasters and the place that we sit in at ECCF, like what's our role? We kind of fell into that, but through that we've learned significantly